November, the year before last, the government thought that they had a measure of working people and the unemployed in this country, because only a few months prior to that, they got the revenue to thieve the property tax off most of us. However, I think what's been demonstrated in the course of the last few months since April, where this type of activity began in Cork and Toker, and it quickly spread to Dublin and all over the country, it's clear to me that the game is well and truly on in terms of the water tax. And this is a battle that we fought before, 20 years ago. Some of us here are old enough to remember when across Dublin the water tax was imposed, and over a course of a 3-year struggle based on non-payment, public meetings and protests, the government finally threw the towel in December 1996. So we've been here before, and it's been demonstrated that working class people, when they stick together, are capable of inflicting a defeat on this government. Now, I think it's important to recognise where the battle over water meter installation fits in terms of the overall battle against the water tax. Because I think the battle that we're facing this week in this community, if Irish Water dare to show up, it's a fight that's worth having. I think it's in terms of the media, in terms of giving confidence to people across the country, where they see people here in Ferrybank and Waterford, in Kilkenny and Limerick, all today, responding in an active way in terms of protest. That counts for a lot. But I'll tell you, just to be frank, which is what counts for even more, is when people turn out in large numbers and when people can see that it's not just a question of seasoned political activists, the likes of myself, or Kieran, or John, but that these protests are populated in the main by ordinary working class people. That counts for a huge amount. Because, again, to be blunt about it, there's been a number of protests in this vicinity in recent weeks over the water meter installation, but also in terms of Greyhound as well, and the Greyhound workers, about a dozen of whom live in this very community. But most of those protests have been a bit too small for my liking. And I think what would make a critical difference from here on is that I know people work and so on, but if even half the people that are here involve themselves in the coming days in the protests and obstructions that have to take place, it could be a very good place. Because Irish Water are now dependent heavily on the guards. We've had arrests today again, we've had obviously injunctions served. And it's far, far easier for them to get away with that when they get a sense that they're only picking on a handful of people, a handful of politicos. Whereas what we've done here, between the leafleting last night and the turnout here today, that this area has been well prepared for this battle, but it'll only happen if people involve themselves actively. So that's the key political points are made about why we're here. Where I think, regardless of whether you have a meter installed outside your house or you don't in the coming months, everybody's going to get a bill come January. In fact, if Irish Water were never impeded, only 400,000 houses in this country would have a meter outside their house. That's only 1/4 of all houses. We're all in it together come January when the bills come. Most of us will have estimated bills, and that's where the non-payment phase of the campaign begins. Exactly. Because the last thing I'd say is that, there are people who aren't here tonight who I'm sure are with us in spirit, or maybe they're just lacking in confidence, or maybe their heads are still down and they don't see how we can beat them. It's very important the role all of you play in talking to the people who aren't here tonight in the community. It's only by word of mouth, and when they see leadership in their own midst, in their own family and in their own street, in their own workplace, that people will draw a bit of confidence that we're capable of beating these people at this battle. So I'll just leave it at that, and we'll have a practical side to this discussion and we can get everybody's numbers.